more.
One more.
Okay,
Okay, we'll share.
we'll share.
Okay, well, this panel is on soil health as an investable proposition. And I know what you might be thinking, soil, a lot of people just think of it as dirt. It doesn't sound very high tech. How could it be an investable proposition? Why is it an important topic at this conference? And you really don't hear that much about soil health as a topic. You hear a lot about climate change, and it always tends to be about the weather and about air quality and water quality. But soil, perhaps our least glamorous resource, is really the solution to many of our other valuable resource problems that we have in agriculture and in society at large. And so, what if I told you that we do have a way to feed the world's growing population, and we can do it with a significant reduction in synthetic fertilizer and pesticide? And we can do it by sequestering a significant amount of carbon out of our atmosphere, and we can do that and make farmers more money at the same time. And the key to all that is really soil health and the coming revolution in regenerative agriculture. And so we have an esteemed panel of CEOs on the floor here that are all working in this area of improving soil health in one way or another. So I'm going to start out and ask each of our panel to maybe introduce yourself, tell us what drives you to be in this area, and a little bit about what your company does and why it's unique. And so we'll start with Marshall down on the end.
Yes, my name is Marshall Mermell, and I'm the CEO of a company known as Advanced Resilient Technology. And we really form joint ventures with people who have waste, agricultural waste, MSW, that we can then take that waste and turn it into a material that is known as biochar or inorganic char and solve a lot of problems with it. And in order to understand it, I brought 3 books that I recommend. I'm not going to talk about them. They're not my books. But if you read these books, you're going to get the big picture. The first one's called The Uninhabitable Earth, Life After Warming by David Wallace Wells. It's a scary book, kind of good for Halloween. This book is The Green Amendment by Van Rossen, who I met as a keynote speaker on harmful algal blooms, which are tied to soil health. And the last one, which is really relevant for soil health, is Burn, Using Fire to Cool the Earth by Albert Bates and Kathleen Draper. And Kathleen Draper is from the Ithaca Institute. And if you Google her, she wrote a significant item called The 55 Uses of Biochar. But in this book, she talks about the hundreds of thousands of uses of biochar. And so my background is bringing technology providers together, 5 technologies that are unique, and deploying them to regenerate soil and health.
Jim.
Thanks, Bruce. Jim Loar, President and CEO of Coolplanet. Been in agriculture about 32 years. Started out with Griffin Corporation, one of the early generic chemical companies. Moved on to Wilbur Ellis Company, name that several of you here in California know. 3rd largest ag retailer in the United States. And about 4 years ago, joined Coolplanet, an agricultural technology development company, really focused on the intersection or the nexus between carbon and its use in soil and material science, and how to create fixed carbon that has value in agriculture-related green industries and potential industrial uses.
Hi everybody, my name is Adrian Ferrero. I'm co-founder and CEO of BiomeMakers. I'm originally from Spain, but I've been around for the last 4 years here. We came to US to build BiomeMakers because we realized that growers are used to face risks. So everything is threatening their economic activity, and they lack on reliable metrics on how to do better. And especially when it comes to soil, we have always seen the soil as the place where the plants stick and grow, but we haven't considered the soil as a living organism. And that's what it is, because there is a huge complex interactions between the plant and the soil, and the impact that the soil have in agriculture is amazing. And especially if we consider the soil as a system, the microbes living in the soil are the ones fulfilling most of the functions, most of the bioactivities. So with this idea on the head, we start developing a technology to really monitor, to really understand what is happening in the soil, how the soil is impacting agriculture from the different dimensions that have agronomic relevance. So we use DNA sequencing to profile the whole spectrum of microbes, and then artificial intelligence to provide this functional interpretation of the soil microbiome and deliver the results in a way that is very easy for anybody to understand what they have to do.
Okay, good. And I'm Bruce Caldwell. I'm the founder and CEO of 3Bar Biologics. 3Bar is you could think of us as a probiotic for plants company. Our products are living microorganisms which provide a range of services to crops. We started out as a spin-out from Ohio State University, and to commercialize the microbes that the university had discovered, we invented a unique delivery system, and that's really the company's IP. And we also realized that that IP has value for other companies that are also doing discovery work on beneficial microorganisms for crops. And there's many companies and organizations doing this type of research. The science is really improving, and so the discovery is really just exploding right now of our understanding of the soil microbiome and what it could do. And the focus of 3Bar is really to help with the productization and creation of products that can begin to leverage that knowledge and put it in the hands of farmers as a useful product. So maybe just to get into the topic a little bit more, we probably ought to do a little bit more of a definition of soil health. So I don't know, Adrian, you want to take that one on as a first step to define soil health for us?
That's a very difficult question, because there is a lot of controversy on how to define soil health. Many people is working on that, and from my point of view, well, if we try to define health in humans, it's pretty much the same. So at the end, who is healthy? So the one who is alive and is going to give alive for a long time. No, that would be like the essence of being healthy. So from my point of view, a healthy soil or soil health is the status of the soil where the bioactivity, the life in the soil is moving in the regular way, in the natural way. So if we can get to the status where we have an active soil that is, or a specialized active soil that is contributing to grow the plants, then we have a healthy soil for agriculture.
Yeah, so the difference between healthy soil and dirt is the biology. The microbiology specifically. Okay, any other thoughts?
Well, I think it's even a little more complex than that. I mean, there's the biological systems, there's chemical systems, and there's the physical systems of soil. So we tend to dumb down dirt, right, as a society. And the reality is it's exceptionally complex. There's the biology, there's chemical factors, and there's physical factors that all have an impact. I think for those of you that aren't familiar with soil health, I'd kind of urge you to go to the Soil Health Institute, their website. That's a nonprofit organization, principally funded by the Noble Foundation in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Look at their definition. I think it pretty much perfect societal alignment, and they do a very nice job of representing the ag industry in the soil health sector of it. So check out the Soil Health Institute.
I completely agree with my colleague here about that particular website. There are several others. If you want, you can go to the state of California, has a great soil health website, and so does the USDA. And I worked with both California and USDA officials and DEC officials in the state of New York on soil health. I would say that one of the elements that I think, in fact, the name of your company, Biome, is a really important term, is that in the biome, soil health is representative of a form of what we're seeing, which is known as regenerative farming. And regenerative farming was mentioned by a number of people in this conference already, and it's a form of being able to address soil health and doing it in a natural, non-toxic approach.
Okay. It might also be worth noting that the Farm Bill that was passed by the U.S. Congress most recently, really for the first time ever, talks about soil health and support for farmers who are taking on specific practices to build the health of their soil. Frequently that gets translated as active carbon content, because generally if you have a good carbon content or organic matter content in your soil, that's going to support that living biology, that biotic life. And so, you know, one of the answers to, so why is this important and so important now? Well, part of it is the government is really starting to recognize, acknowledge, and support farmers for addressing soil health issues. At the same time, you know, the most recent UN report on climate change had a big focus on soil quality, and it was quite a dire report, really. That covered a range of different types, including the fact that, you know, most of our soils in the United States, we've lost more than half of that organic matter that was originally there, and that there's a limited amount of time, if current practices don't change, that we're going to be able to continue farming as we have and producing as we have. All right. So one question I've got. So both Jim and Marshall, you both talked about biochar. You're both involved with biochar, and that's an ancient technology. And so a real question that I've got that people might be interested in is tell us what's new about biochar and your approach to it.
Biochar was originally termed terra preta, which means black earth, and it was derived from South America predominantly in the Brazilian forests. It's evolved there over time, in which indigenous people down in Brazil, most of the rainforests there were originally sandy soils. And thousands of years ago, indigenous people would capture pigs, animals, and eat them, and they would cook them in the ground. And that was cooking in the absence of oxygen, which we call today pyrolysis. And they created this char-like soil that was amended with other nutrients. And in fact, biochar itself it is usually produced through some form of thermal conversion technology. It could be torrefactions, pyrolysis, or gasification. But when you do that, the raw char that comes out, we call it elemental char. It has to be, in my opinion, formulated properly so that it can go into the soil, protect the soil, protect the agricultural components or the horticultural components that are growing there, and at the same time nutrify the soils. One of the things that char has that's an advantage is it's a porous material, and it has high porosity. In fact, some people call it charcoal. It's not charcoal. It's chemically different. It looks like charcoal. It's black, it's powdery, but it's not. It has a porosity to it, and with porosity, it has an adsorption capability. The more it adsorbs, the better it is. You can adsorb water. So therefore, for soil health, you need a lot of water, or the right amount of water, and you can think of biochar as kind of a formulated biome calculator that knows when to give up the water to the type of plant that is growing in the soil.
Yeah, so what do I think is different? Number one, if we look at our soils globally, there's 3 different forms of carbon in all soils. There's a labile form, which is manures, mulches. There's humic fractions, which is growing in agriculture dramatically. That's the food source for the biology. And the reality is there's fixed carbon in our soils, which really now that we have human intervention, is a lot less than it used to be. I think the discussion around what biochar is correct. I think you ask what's new about it. Number one, the recognition that it's a material science discussion, that the material you use to make it matters. The production processes, temperatures, timing, residence timing, all matters. And then the formulation, format. We talked about ag application equipment, high-tech tractors, has to go through those equipment. Farmers won't buy new equipment to apply a new product or a new technology, so it has to be formulated to easily go in the soil and not create other problems for farmers. So that measuring of technology and development of technology and process is probably the new in, quote, biochar today.
Okay, thank you. And Adrian, your company is focused on diagnostics of the biology of the soil. Could you maybe give us an example of how a farmer has put that into action, or how a farmer could put that into action to change their practice?
Yes, sure. Let me just come back to your previous comment, because that was very interesting. Why we are now talking a lot about soil health and why society has become aware of this, because soil has been always there. Why is now the moment where we are looking at? You mentioned the climate change report published by the IPCC. That was amazing. It was blaming agriculture of causing almost 1/3 of the gas emissions, carbon gas emissions. And also it was pointing out at agriculture as the mitigator of most of the problems that we have when it comes to climate change. And when we think about what are the possibilities, what we can do in agriculture, actually we have limitations in the fertilization. So it's not a matter of adding more fertilizers. It's a matter of making fertilization more efficient, because otherwise we'll have so many negative side effects in the water, in the soil, so everywhere. And there are other elements that are also important, and that's the reason because today we are talking a lot about soil health, and also because there is new technologies, there is biologicals now coming into the market that are contributing a lot to restore and regenerate what has been done in the last 40 years, especially because those were the tools that the growers had to really grow the food. But now we have a different tools. So what we have is to show the growers which are the right tools fitting their soil, and that's what we do. So when it comes to diagnosis, in essence, what we tell them is what is the status of the soil in terms of, first, the biodiversity, so how active the soil is, not just from the number of species, the taxonomic information, but also at functional level. So how active your soil is, and that's going to give them information about the past. No, if they have been doing great or not, or it can be better, it's balanced or it's unbalanced. And then specifically on disease risks, so they can prevent. If they have symptomatology already, well, then they know the cause. But if they don't, they can prevent the apparition of the disease. And then the nutrient mobilization. Those are mainly the examples what we see in most of the crops that we work with.
Yeah, I think many of the people in the sector are really excited about the potential of changing our agricultural practice so that agriculture could become a net carbon sink versus a net carbon emitter. Because it is true that, you know, for us as humans, supporting photosynthesis is one of the few things that we can do. Growing green plants is one of the few things we can do as a human that does not put carbon in the atmosphere and actually takes carbon out of the atmosphere. So that's truly one of the great promises of regenerative agriculture, and I think we've very briefly heard a few examples of how we might put that into practice and actually accelerate it in the coming years. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks guys.